Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I'm going to work on one of the reels that we previewed earlier. It came in from Kevin out in Oregon, and well, a lot of requests to see this one, so I thought we would do a video on it. This is the Daiwa, it's the Millionaire II, one of my favorites. I personally fish with the Daiwa's Millionaire series. Like them a lot. Of course, I also like the Abu Ambassador, and these two are often confused. But this is the Daiwa product, and I think you'll see it's a beautiful reel and a nice product. We're going to start by taking off the exterior pieces. As I do, I want to take a moment to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you do, then please hit the notification button, and that will tell you when I'm posting the videos, so you never have to miss one, or at least you never have to miss the opportunity to make a decision to see one. I work on all kinds of reels. Today we're working on a round bait casting reel, but tomorrow it may be a trolling reel, and the day after that, well, it may be a spinning reel. So we took off the cap that holds that in position. Now we have a little C-clip here that's very similar to an Abu. And I would encourage you, if you don't know this reel, go ahead and get the schematic for the reel, and that'll show you the burst diagram for it. And also, go and get a camera to take pictures along the way. That way, if you forget where a particular piece or part goes, well, you can just look at those pictures as references, and that'll help you out. Now, we had a C-clip here. You have to be careful with these. These things shoot, and that's why I was being careful. But when you take that off, make sure you have a home for it. And the home I find for it is a parts tray. I use the bottom of a fast food container for that purpose. And you're also going to find a little washer underneath that C-clip, so make sure that you keep those two together. Once we do that, we can continue with taking the exterior pieces off. That's your handle. There's a little tension washer that sits between the handle and the star adjuster. And we have the star adjuster off. That comes off in a counterclockwise manner. This one's a little tight, so I'm just going to put a little bit of penetrating oil there. It'll seep into the threads of that post and make it a little bit easier to come off. They get tight because dirt and that gets lodged in there. It's not uncommon, but that penetrating oil does help loosen up the threads a little bit, and you can spin it eventually. And we'll remember that putting that back on as well. You can see that there's some old something in there. Almost looks like some kind of line or something. You can kind of see there's something in there that it's possible that was put on incorrectly. Not sure. And there's a bushing, and there's a shim washer under that bushing or sleeve that completes that gear stack. With the side plate off, we're going to take a flat-bladed screwdriver and to remove the side case. And I'm not sure if this side case will come off this way, or if those two screws in the middle also have to be released. We're going to find out in a moment. I just like to crack the screw until I can work these by hand. They're sometimes called thumb screws. They have a ridge on them. And there's 3 of them on this case. And we'll see how we can remove that side case now that we've taken those 3 off. Underneath, we can work on this side first. We have a spool. That spool has 2 brakes. This thing has got what's called the centrifugal braking. 2 brakes, a bushing. If you wanted to hot rod this, you could take a bearing instead of the bushing. We'll just put a little bit of oil on that. And we have the drive that's going to run the level wind. So we can just simply take that, put that back in after we've oiled that. Make sure it snaps in place. Give it a turn and make sure you're turning your level wind. And I'm going to service the level wind at the same time that I service the frame here. We're going to take off the cap. Wow, there's a lot of something stuck on there. And you have to be careful with these caps because this one really got jammed. There we go. I like to find the right screwdriver that matches up with the caps, just so you don't break anything along the way. So Your cap has got a little copper washer inside of it, and then there's a pawl. Sometimes if you just tap it, the pawl will come out. Well, it's coming down, it's not quite out. And when you do this, you just want to make sure that you have the pawls cleaned. On the pawl, there's 2 points. Hopefully you can see those. There's 2 points. You need to make sure that they're even. You also want to make sure that if there's any debris gathering along the shoulders of this, that you scrape that off. That debris will clog the tracks of your worm gear, which is underneath, and if it clogs the tracks, eventually it will either wear the points on the pawl or will wear the tracks, and then you have to replace one or the other or both. With that done, we're going to go ahead and put that back in the carrier. I'm just using the little pliers to kind of steady it up. I'm going to put a drop of oil into there. That'll help it move freely inside it. And then I'm going to hold my finger on it, and I'm going to turn it until it pulls that down to where it's almost flush. Now we can put a little bit of oil inside the cap if you like. We'll put the cap back on. And then we'll go over to the core side of the reel. We'll show you what's on the gears, how to service that, and how to keep these things running nicely. Now, Kevin sent me about 7 or 8 reels, and they're all in nice condition. You can tell they've been cared for. That's not always the case with the reels that I get in the shop, and I can tell you that if you take care of the reel will take care of you. And if you fish the reel until it breaks, well, there's nobody to blame but yourself. All right, 2 screws come out here. That's holding the case on. This is a good time to get your camera ready to take a picture, because as soon as you take those pieces out, that's going to expose the internal side of the gear. And you want to make sure that these are all correct. So things to note: the gearing, the springs go up top. I like to remove those springs just as quick as I can, because typically you'll pick that up, you'll move it around, and the next thing you know is it's going to disappear on you. So don't worry that. Okay, good place to take a picture. Notice you've got a couple of springs here that are onto the free spool release. You've got a clip here that's holding on the bottom ends of those. We have the jack with the 2 humps that are going to push and pull this in and out. We have our pinion gear, our main gear, our drag assembly, and tension washers. And we also have a traditional anti-reverse forked dog there. And we're going to go ahead and remove the sleeve, and I pointed to that dog because that dog is part of the assembly there. So you want to make sure that as you clean the pieces and parts, you take a note and take a picture of how that is oriented. We're also going to remove the yoke. Now this is totally clean. There's nothing we need to do here other than replace some of the essential oils. So we'll go ahead and oil that free spool release assembly. And what you're going to see when we push this button down is this lever is going to come in. That lever is going to intersect with the slots on the back of the click ratchet or gear assembly. And then when it comes around, it's going to push it back up. It's going to release, and that's going to fire this back up. Okay, good enough for that for now. Let's take the yoke and the pinion gear. We'll clean up the old greases on there. And I'm often asked, how frequently should you service your reel? And my answer is annually. And you can do that either at the beginning of your fishing season or at the end. I prefer to do it at the end of my season. That way the reel is ready to go fishing when the season starts. And you don't have to worry about taking out a reel that has old line on it or hasn't been serviced and may just break or anything like that. I've just put a little bit of grease onto the inner part of the yoke. You want to check your yoke now. There's going to be a side that has 2 slanted pieces that faces towards the spool. And check your pinion gear. I'll make sure that all of the teeth are clean. This one is. If there's any fault with this reel, let's run out of grease. The side that has the slot and the ring face the spool. That's going to accept the spool. And this is how your finished yoke assembly goes back on the reel. And I like to put that one on before I put the main gear on. So that's how that sits. Don't forget that we have the springs that go on top of that. All right, I'm going to push this through. There's a series of tension washers here. That's going to help you with the sensitivity of your star adjuster. And we're going to be able to bring the post back up. We're going to wipe off the post for the old greases. Put some new grease onto that post. I'm using Penn Precision reel grease for this. You can use whatever reel grease you like, just please make sure it's a fishing reel grease. Next up then is that click ratchet and the anti-reverse dog. Again, most of what you're doing in terms of servicing your reel is to make sure that it's been cleaned, and if there's parts are inspected, and that if there's any problem with the parts, they're replaced. I'm going to take that. Notice that's an oval, it's not circular. It's going to fit over the square shoulders on the bottom part of this assembly. So we're going to put the anti-reverse dog and that ratchet in the same time. And we're going to hold that ratchet and press down with pressure until you make sure that the bottom of that, which is oval, on the stand or on the shaft, is holding that firm here. Once we do that, we can take the hard washer and put that over the top. Notice there's nothing on the back of this main gear, but there are drag washers inside of it. We want to do our best to make sure that they get serviced as well. We're going to clean out the cavity. I'm going to use a cotton swab for that. We're going to do the same thing on the gear that we did on the pinion gear. We're going to inspect the teeth to make sure that they're all uniform. No chips, cracks, bends, or abnormalities in it that will affect the performance of the reel if there are. And then we want to get a good dose of grease onto this. And those of you that are comparing this to a Abu Ambassador, well, most of the stuff kind of mimics it, right? There's not a lot of difference between the two reels. Take that main gear and seat it. Now we have leather washers that we need to attend to. And leather washers are fine. They just need to be kept fresh. These have been pressed down a little bit. We'll freshen them up. So we have a little bit of residual. It's probably just dried grease from those leather washers. Now leather washers are permeable, so what you want to do is you want to keep them lubricated so that they don't dry and crack. So I use a drag grease. You don't have to use dry grease, you can use fishing reel grease, but get a good coating on there. And we're going to alternate these now. We're going to do with the round washers. There's two round washers. They are different, so that's where pictures help. This one has a flat surface, this one has a belt surface. So this is the first one in. It's called a keyed washer. That goes on. We're going to do that, the drag washer thing two more times, and you can see why I'm wearing a protective glove, because you want to keep the greases and oils and that off your hand where possible. Okay, that one with the 2 points sits inside with the points facing down. That's called an eared washer. That has a circular hole in the center and has points that fit in there, and that holds the gear when you use the drags. Now we have that one with the offset center. One's raised and one's indented. The raised side faces up. Then, as you know, because you saw, I've left the tension washers right on my bench here rather than going to my porch tray. The tension washers, the flat one goes first. These are bent, intentionally bent, so please leave them. Don't flatten them out. I like to put them face to face. That gives you a little more variability in the star adjuster, and to me that works fine. All right, we can put the other two on at this point. I took them out from the front end. That's not necessary. We're going to put the flat one goes on next, And then that plastic gear sleeve is the last piece for this assembly. Before we close this up, we need those two springs. I can't tell you how many times I've forgotten these springs when I've done the service. And that's where my parts tray helps, because I looked in my parts tray after I closed the reel up and saw the two springs there, and well, I knew I wasn't done. Find your slot. We're going to reassemble this now. Find your slot. You want even pressure as you push down on these springs so that they compress straight down and not off to the side. If you see the spring kind of hanging around in these holes, you haven't done it right, and you just want to do it again. All right, I'm going to just sort of line that up. Find the top of the case. Sometimes it's good to just kind of press in there to get the snap right on that. And I was looking, you want to make sure that you have a firm slot all the way around. I wasn't getting that slot because these screws were not going all the way through the case. So just be aware of that as you go to reset your piece. What I did just confirm there without saying so is that the free spool and trip lever and everything is working the way it should. And now we'll just put these two side plate screws in to hold the assembly down. If you have questions on this reel or any reel in particular, and maybe you're working on one, you're a little stuck, if you leave that question in the comment section to this video, I do try to answer them. The questions are coming fast and furious. I don't necessarily have the time to answer all of them, but I try. And if you have one, I'll try to help you out there. All right, well, we said that we saw a little bit of toughness coming out. It's going to be a little bit of something caught on there, so what we're doing right now is we're just going to put a little oil on there. That'll just help me put the star adjuster back on. Make sure you have it going on nice and even. If you don't see it coming on even, well, what you want to do is you want to just stop, take another look at it, and try to make the best of it. I'm holding the bottom of the shaft now just so that I can stop the shaft from turning as I put that star adjuster on. Now I'm holding the top of it. I'm just using a little pliers. And once you have enough that the handle can sit on there, you can use the handle as that wrench to hold the rest of it down. Well, those of you that were paying attention know that the next piece in is that little tension spring that goes between the star adjuster and the handle. So don't forget that as you work towards completing the reel. Again, a parts tray helps with that because, well, you'll see it off to the side. Tension washer goes on, handle goes on, and now we have that C-clip and that little washer is the next piece on. The little washer is just a spacer to ensure that that C-clip fits nice and tight. Most of the time you can get the C-clip back on with hand strength. If you don't have the hand strength, I just had it there. Press it in by just finding the middle of the C-clip and pushing in. If you don't, go ahead and use that pliers or something else just to give you a little more leverage. We should be able to get our cap nut back on now. This is a 10mm. When you do this, you want to try and line up the flat side of the cap or a point directly at that hole where that cap nut is going to go. And it seems most of the time if you can do that, then the cap is going to fit properly. Which it does. And then we're going to go ahead and put the screw in, tighten this down, and we're going to go ahead and lubricate the shaft on the spool. These things cast quite well. We didn't see a lot of ball bearings in this one, but they cast quite well. And like I said, I have one that has a ball bearing sets to them. Just trying to locate the holes. Okay, we should be able to hand tighten these in the frame. I think that's it. And again, I use my fingers to start these because I don't want to strip the screws. I want to keep those going in nice and evenly. That way you don't risk having a case that's disjointed or that. Alright, now I can just take the screwdriver for that final quarter turn or whatever. Tighten those down. Okay, time to give it a test. We're a little tight because we put a little more grease in there. We'll just back that off a little bit. There you go. That is your Daiwa Millionaire fishing reel. Recently serviced, ready to go fishing again. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, please like it. Again, I would appreciate anybody, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And if you do subscribe, please hit the notification button. That will help you as we post more videos. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you to all of our first responders and essential personnel. And to all, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. And have a great day.